You are 7 years old. Men you have never met come to your house, take you from your mother, and your mother does not object. This is normal. This is the plan. For the next 23 years, the state owns you. It will starve you deliberately, beat you publicly, and at some point it will hand you a knife and point you at an unarmed man. And Sparta genuinely believed this was the best childhood in Greece. The rest of Greece unnervingly agreed with them. So let's do it properly. Birth to death, 30 years of Spartan life, and every single thing that happens to you along the way. You're born around 450 BC in Laconia in southern Greece, and the first thing that happens to you is an inspection. The story you've heard is that weak or sickly infants were thrown off a cliff called the apothetai. It's in Plutarch. It's in every documentary. Here's the problem. Plutarch wrote that roughly 400 years after the fact. And when archaeologists actually excavated the pit at Kaiatis, the bones they found were overwhelmingly adult men. So the cliff was real, and it was used for prisoners and criminals. The baby throwing is the part nobody can confirm. Keep that in mind, because it happens a lot with Sparta. What we can say is that you were inspected, and that Sparta cared enormously whether you'd be useful. You passed. You're still here. At 7, you leave home for good and enter the agoge. It means something close to the raising, which is a very gentle name for what it is. You are put into a pack of boys your own age. You will eat with them, sleep beside them, fight them, and be measured against them constantly for the next 2 decades. You're given one garment, not one outfit, one cloak, and you get a new one once a year. You wear it in summer, and you wear the same one in winter. You go barefoot. The reasoning is that shoes make feet soft, and Sparta wants you able to march and climb on any surface without thinking about it. You sleep on a bed of reeds. You cut them yourself from the riverbank, by hand, without a blade. In winter, you're allowed to mix in thistledown for warmth. That's the luxury option. And you are hungry. Not occasionally, structurally. Your rations are deliberately set below what a growing boy needs, and this is not neglect. It's curriculum. The theory is that a permanently hungry boy grows lean and tall, learns to endure discomfort, and becomes resourceful. So you're expected to steal the difference. Yes, you are expected to steal food. It's part of the training. Sneaking into the storehouses and taking what you need is exactly what they want you doing. But if you're caught, you're beaten. Not for stealing, for being bad at it. The crime is incompetence. The lesson is never get seen. And this produces the single most famous story about Spartan boys. A boy steals a fox cub, hides it under his cloak, and it's stopped by an adult. Rather than be caught, he stands there and answers questions calmly while the fox tears into his stomach underneath the fabric. He collapses and dies without ever giving himself away. Now, that's Plutarch again, and it's almost certainly a parable rather than a police report. But Spartans told it to their own children approvingly, and that tells you what they wanted from you. Then there's the contest at the altar of Artemis or Thea. Boys are flogged, and the winner is whoever endures the longest without crying out. This one is well attested. And in later centuries, under Roman rule, it became such a spectacle that the Spartans built seating around it, and tourists came to watch. Sit with that for a moment. A ritual beating of children became a stadium event with a paying audience. Rome loved it. You're also taught to speak, which sounds ordinary until you hear how. You are trained to answer questions in as few words as possible and mocked if you ramble. That region is called Laconia, which is exactly why we still say laconic today to mean saying a lot with very little. The best known example, Philip II of Macedon sends a threat saying that if he invades, he will raze Sparta to the ground. The Spartans send back a one-word reply. If. That reply is the entire education working as intended. No bravado, no argument, no wasted breath. Now the part that gets left out of the inspirational version of Sparta. When you're older, you may be selected for something called the Crypteia. You're sent out into the countryside with a knife and no supplies, hiding by day, moving at night. And your task is to kill
Helots. The Helots are the enslaved population that Sparta conquered generations earlier. The people who do all the farming, so that Spartan men never have to do anything but train for war.
And that is the actual foundation of the entire system. Every Spartan citizen is fed by enslaved labor, which is the only reason a full-time warrior class can exist at all. The Helots massively outnumber the Spartans. By some ancient estimates, 7 to 1. Sparta is a small armed minority sitting on top of a population that has every reason to revolt.
So Sparta terrorizes them formally. Each year, the state declares war on the Helots, so that killing one is legally an act of war rather than murder.
That's what the famous discipline was actually for. Not glory, not freedom. Sparta needed to be the most frightening society in Greece because it was permanently terrified of the people it enslaved. At 20, you finish the agoge and apply to join a mess, a group of about 15 men you'll eat your evening meal with for the rest of your life. Entry has to be unanimous. One member drops a single piece of bread the wrong way into a bowl and you're rejected. That's it. That's your whole future. And you must pay your dues to that mess and food. From land worked by Helots. If you ever can't pay, you lose your citizenship. The famous dish is the black broth, pork boiled with blood, salt, and vinegar. A visitor from another city tasted it and said he finally understood why Spartans weren't afraid to die. You marry around your 20s, and the ceremony is genuinely strange. Your bride's head is shaved, she's dressed in men's clothing, and left in a dark room.
And then you don't move in. You still live in the barracks. You sneak out at night to see your own wife and sneak back before dawn. For years.
Some couples reportedly had several children before they'd properly seen each other in daylight. Sparta considered this romantic, on the grounds that difficulty keeps desire sharp. And here's the turn nobody expects. If you're a Spartan woman, you have more freedom than any other woman in the Greek world, by a wide margin. You can own property. By some estimates, women eventually held around a third of all Spartan land. You're educated. You exercise, run, and throw the javelin in public. Because Spartan men are away for most of their lives, women effectively run the households and the estates. Other Greeks found this appalling and said so constantly. When a foreign woman asked the Spartan queen Gorgo why Spartan women were the only ones who could rule men, Gorgo said, "Because we are the only ones who give birth to men." At 30, you finally become a full citizen. You may live in your own home. You may vote. You've been in the system for 23 years to reach this point. You'll serve in the army until 60, and then the payoff. You survive all of it, and you watch Sparta destroy itself anyway.
Because the system had one fatal flaw. Citizenship required land, dues, and passing the agoge. And the standard never loosened, so the number of true Spartans only ever fell.
From perhaps 8,000 citizen soldiers in the Persian War era down to roughly 1,000 by the time of the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where Thebes broke them in a single afternoon. Sparta didn't lose because it went soft. It lost because it built a machine so demanding that the machine ran out of Spartans.